Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Now today I've got here with me two really low budget action cameras. Actually we are talking about 20 to 30 euros, so this is really low budget. Now one of the points that I would like to make right now is that with low prices we all know that there will be compromises, and in this particular video we will take a look as usual if those compromises are acceptable or not. And we are back. So as always guys, starting with the unboxing experience, you will have some images on screen, and for my own sake I will use the term 4K for the 4K resolution camera and 1080 for the 1080 resolution camera, although they have different technical names which I'll post on screen as well, and I will leave links down below. And with all this said, the only thing that I would like to mention on this unboxing is that the 4K camera has a few more accessories than the 1080 cheaper version. Now, taking a closer look at both of them, in terms of connectivity, the difference that I found is that the 4K camera has an HDMI output, which can be actually useful, but in terms of the rest, they are both identical, as we can see on screen. Now the outer case, or the waterproof case to be more precise, on the 4K is a bit safer. We can't remove it as easily as we can on the 1080 version, which I find it not so safe to use underwater. Now, let's say that I give it to my kid, probably will try to move it, and if it does move, it's easy to open and it will damage. Of course, he will be damaging 20 euros or $20, so not a big of a loss, but that said, here's the difference between one and the other. Now, in terms of build quality, I don't see many difference between the two. They are made of plastic and rubber, they are lightweight. I don't see nothing wrong with that. Actually, in my opinion, for the price that they have, I find them very acceptable. Now, in terms of the screen, they both have the same screen size, and in terms of the menu, as you can see on the image, the 4K camera has a bit more options, obviously, especially in terms of the resolution itself. We can choose from 4K 30 frames, 2.7K 30 frames, 1080 at 60 frames per second, 1080 30 frames per second and below, and the 1080 version we can only select 1080 at 30 frames per second. Now, in terms of the options or the menu itself, as you guys could have a few seconds to see, they're both very simple, easy to use. We have those arrows up and down so that we can select the options and so on. So I didn't find any issues at all. Very acceptable, very useful, and both have something that I really like, which is the saving energy options. We can define if we will use the screen saver, which will shut down the screen and it will keep recording and will save a lot of battery, and it will also shut down after a few minutes if we want. So this is a great feature that both of them have. Now, until now, there are no compromises in my opinion, because guys, action cameras are action cameras, and honestly, using one of these or using my reliable E4K, I wouldn't mind at all, although the build quality of the 4K is much better, the price is much higher. So far I haven't seen any issue at all that would compromise purchasing. Now, when it comes to image quality and audio, those are the biggest compromises. And guys, I'm sure that you already are seeing something on screen. Now, I did record a few images in terms of landscape itself so that we could take a closer look and have a better idea on how both these cameras will translate the image that we capture. And then I also took it to the beach, both a bit of the landscape of the beach and also took it to underwater, and hopefully you can see some images there. Now, the water was not as clear as possible. There was some waves, so I'm not sure if you guys can see well, because there was a bit of sand in the water, not on the air, a bit of sand, and there we go. Now, the final test that I did was on my swimming pool, and as you guys can see there, there is quite a difference between the image of the 4K and the 1080, especially in terms of the pixelation or in terms of resolution. The 4K captures a much better image than the 1080. So in terms of image, there is quite a difference between these two, and honestly, if I had to choose one of these cameras just for the image, I would go for the 4K. I would pay the 10 euros difference and I would get a much better image. But before we do that, guys, let's talk a little bit about audio. Now, I did test these cameras with the enclosure, the water enclosure on.
Both of them sucked, and even more when inside a case. Both of them sucked, and even more when inside a case.
So as you can see, guys, I'm recording in the office right now, and this part of the clip will serve two purposes, one of which will be the audio, and right now we are listening to the 4K camera, and I'm going to pass to the 1080, and at the same time you guys can hear me and also check the image quality, just in case you are wondering if this camera is suitable for indoor. And right now I'm going to switch to my phone, which is recording audio as well, so that we can see the difference that there is. So as you could see on this test, guys, the audio is crappy, especially compared with any other microphone like the ones that I used. Now the biggest problem here is on the 4K. As you guys could see, the audio is totally out of sync. Now I did try every setting, I did try everything that I could, even different resolutions. So we're just testing out a little bit more of the audio, because I did find out that it was completely synchronized, and at the moment I'm recording 4K 30 frames per second. The audio is synchronized, and at this moment we are recording at 2.7K at 30 frames per second. And with another test, right now we are recording at 1080p at 60 frames per second. And a last test just to check out if we can record synchronized audio, and at this time we are recording at 1080 with 30 frames per second. So as you guys could see, the audio on the 4K camera is totally out of sync, and that might be a deal breaker. So in conclusion, guys, the question is, are these really low budget cameras acceptable? And it really depends on what we are looking for. If you ask me, I would not choose any of these, and if I had to choose one, I would probably go with the 1080 version, because it actually can capture audio in sync, and I can actually use, for example, footages of my kids playing around, and the audio was useful. On the other hand, guys, one example that I could see is if you are looking for a camera just for image capture, and then you are going to put audio on top of it, like music or a soundtrack, then I can see the 4K camera being useful. At a very low price, we can get a nice or acceptable image quality at 4K 30 frames per second, and that we can not use the audio but put a soundtrack so that we can hear. So guys, this will represent most of the budget cameras that we see around on these price ranges, 30 euros, 40 euros. Don't expect any miracles. Now the message of this particular test video is that with low prices, as we all know, there will be compromises. Just depend if we are ready to accept those compromises or not. Hopefully guys, you found this video interesting, and if you did, don't forget that usual thumbs up. As always, my name is Roberto Jorge, and I'll see you on the next one.